Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to, I would say, a very special panel because we are looking at a very broad topic. As you can see, we have called this panel Opportunities, Trends and Challenges for European Utility Scale Solar Deployment, I guess which covers each and every, or which could cover each and every detail of the value chain, but we want actually to take a more general view on the specific topic. Therefore, we have invited representatives from all the major parts of the value chain. We have today people who are involved in development, we have people who are involved in construction, and also, including myself, people who actually are stuck with these beautiful assets for at least 30 years and have to make the best out of them. My name is Jan-Philipp Koch. I am from Encavis AG, a pan-European IPP based in Hamburg, and today I have the honor to be the moderator of this panel. And actually, before we start introducing my fellow panelists, I just wanted to highlight that unfortunately, due to personal reasons, a couple of our panelists couldn't join today. We will, of course, try to make up for them, but if there is a specific perspective missing, please actually bear with us. We will try to cover for them, but obviously we cannot replace them. I would ask my fellow panelists now to introduce themselves shortly by actually telling us who they are, what they do, and also what, in their opinion, is the biggest challenge they currently see for the utility scale solar deployment in Europe. Dirk, you're taking the lead.
Yes, hello. So my name is Dirk Keisers. I'm with Eaton Electric. In Eaton Electric, I'm the segment leader, distributed energy management for more than 4.5 years. My background in PV is actually expanding to more than 15 years. So I've seen essentially raising the whole industry up here in the European part. Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge, Jan-Philipp, for me is the procurement of the material.
Hi everyone. So my name is Ulduz Tofik from Intec Energy Solutions. So we are a solar EPC company, and we are building and doing the construction for solar energy globally. So regarding to challenges, so supply chain, as you mentioned, and also grid, one of the also important topics, I think, regarding to challenges. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Selim Bouziri, I'm from Goldbeck Solar. I've been in the PV branch for now a decade, and with Goldbeck Solar we are a global EPC player focusing on CNI and large-scale, utility-scale solar projects. From my best experience I would say that two challenges which I see right now with utility-scale solar projects is the manpower to accommodate for all the gigawatts we want to build, and normative adaptability of the new technologies with the solutions and the deadlines we have to cope with. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarek Sabbag. I work at Octopus Energy. I work in the investment arm of Octopus Energy, called that Octopus Energy Generation. My role is to execute investments into the renewable space, solar, wind, BESS, and in different stages from development to operational. For me, I mean, we call it trends and challenges. I mean, solar would be there to stay. That's the thesis we believe in at Octopus. But obviously, there are challenges at the moment. Say, grid connection is definitely a challenge. We see that in the UK probably much more than other markets like Germany. Negative pricing is a challenge. Obviously, we've seen that trend. Price cannibalization is a big issue for solar. I think those are the three. Labor for EPC and construction is definitely a key challenge. If we want to do what we're saying we want to do, in Germany, for example, 20 gigawatt a year, that will require a lot of labor, a lot of forces.
Indeed, thank you, Tarek. And I agree that I guess all those three challenges are topics that we should discuss later today, also in detail. However, I would maybe start with something that has changed since last year that is in our favor, and this is probably the political environment, not only in Germany, but also in other European countries. And I would maybe like to briefly ask you, Salim, what has actually changed in the Netherlands, because this is maybe an outlier from this positive environment, and how this actually influences your business as Goldbeck in the country.
So in the Netherlands, we have been building projects now since, I would say, 6 years approximately, 5-6 years. We have built over 1.3 gigawatt as an EPC installer, and we have noticed clear changes. So the major one is, of course, the impact of grid congestions on our projects. So we do receive right now much more limited grid capacities which we can inject in, and there we are faced, of course, with the challenges of needing to overload the inverters in order to make it cost effective for the SDE scheme. But at the same time, we are in the step of foreseeing also battery projects in order to accommodate for more grid capacities in the future, as the grid operators are still trying to do their best to promise for the next years to offer us a little bit more of capacity.
And I guess one specific factor in this is that although EPC prices in general are actually moving in the right direction from a project point of view, grid connection equipment is still substantially expensive and is still going up. Maybe Dirk, you can explain why that actually is, and whether there are any factors that would give us hope that this thing would change in the future.
Yeah, indeed, I think grid connection equipment is a bottleneck at the moment. We see actually like rising demand, obviously, in grid connection equipment, especially in transformers. We don't see, for us, fortunately, not an end to it. So the price is actually driven by demand, as well as you need to take into account. I think there's a technical nature of a transformer, which essentially is a lot of copper inside of a transformer. So the transformer price is very much bound to copper pricing, so which in the end leads back to higher pricing of the transformers. So that is kind of like really something where you see the material price of the raw material impacting the final product a lot. So yeah, that's one of the reasons.
So not so much hope on the grid side of things, but maybe Udus, you can give us a bit more of positive messaging, I hope at least, around the EPC in general. And maybe you can also comment on something that has been extraordinary, and this is the decrease in module prices. I'm not sure how many of you in the room would have expected 1 year ago to see module prices of maybe 10 or 12 cents per kilowatt peak, but maybe you can also give us a bit of guidance on whether that's sustainable or whether it's maybe a one-time effect.
Okay, thank you. Yes. I'm starting with module prices. So as we see from market right now, it's almost in the bottom, the module prices. However, it depends on so many factors, the module prices. So one of the important one for us is like raw material prices, logistic prices, that it really depends on if any problem happens, the prices will go up, but it can be temporary. With our research and talking with the manufacturers, we see that improvement in the efficiency and also improvement in the process of the manufacturing can also affect and decrease the module prices in the future. Even high demands of the modules also can increase the manufacturing of the PV modules, which decrease the prices. So these are all effects. However, we cannot say it will decrease or increase, but we see it decreasing, but not so much for the future.
Okay, also mixed feelings on modules. That's a pity. Salim, I know that you're an expert on inverters, and I guess that's maybe the most important core component apart from the modules. So maybe you can give us a brief update on the current trends and the current discussions around inverters. What I hear from also other investors is that many people are still scratching their heads and are thinking about whether they should go for central or decentral inverters, for example. And again, there we have a situation, I guess, where at the moment securing capacity is maybe more important than actually ever, because inverters shouldn't become a bottleneck. So yeah, happy to hear your thoughts about that.
Traditionally, for utility scale projects, central inverters have been the choice, I would say 10 years ago or even longer. There was, let's say, a low single-digit megawatt range, starting which central makes sense and below which decentral make more sense. That limit has shifted with the time, and right now we are at the double-digit megawatt or even triple. Reason for that is that innovation in the technology, flexibility of the components, and cost effectiveness for the decentral have improved much faster than for the central inverters. So we do have the situation right now that, let's say, as an EPC for our project, we do still have to evaluate both options, because it's not as intuitive as it is to just say, okay, I go now only with central or with decentral. It lies on different factors. So of course, both concepts are in themselves decentral somehow. So in one concept, we decentralized string combiner boxes. In the other concept, we decentralized inverters. In the one concept, we have a little bit smaller MV stations. In the other concept, we have bigger transformer stations. So it's an evaluation of risks. What do we want? Which risk we want to centralize? Which risk we want to decentralize? As of now, the status is that I would say we are doing utility scale projects to a large extent with the decentral. The central is still there, but not as much as it used to be before. The fail rates of decentral inverter for tier 1 suppliers is really low, so it became very reliable, especially comparing to the challenges of designing string combiner boxes on project-specific level. So I would say for the trend, what would come next, for the central, I would say it will go more on the modular concept, so which will allow more flexibility in the design. And for the decentral, we are already at the 1500 volt DC and 800 volt AC, up to, I think, 350 kilowatt. And I would say the next generation will be the 2000 volt DC and 1000 volt AC. Probably in the range of 400, 450 kilowatt. That will be quite of a challenge, a normative challenge, because there we are switching from low voltage to, depending on the country, medium voltage or high voltage. That's something we have to see how this will turn out. But I would say for the central, optimal size for the moment is around 3 to 5 megawatt. And for the decentral, between 250 and 350 kilowatt for the utility scale.
Very interesting. Thank you. Tarek, speaking from investor to investor, so to say, I'm now intentionally oversimplifying, but looking a few years back, I guess we took every EPC that came along our way. That was also maybe just connected to the project, and we got it somehow built. I have the feeling that the discussion has actually evolved a bit since then. So can you maybe share how you are, for your own projects, actually approaching the selection of an EPC, and also maybe which challenges you are facing in the current market environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from an investor perspective, what we found throughout the years is, you work with different EPC players, you have different quality, especially, we had it in the UK when there was the RUC subsidy and there was a rush to connect projects, and we really faced some bad quality installations. So from point of standardizing what we do, we thought, okay, let's come up with what we want as an investor. These are our terms. These are we developed our internal in-house employees requirement. And then if we have a project, we go and speak to EPC and say, look, these are our requirements. Can you bid for those and run a tender? Come up with what we think is the best term available. Obviously, it's not always the case in a competitive market. But that's why we like to buy projects from established developers if they're doing EPC. So an example of that is a project we bought from IBVOGT earlier in the year. They're also doing the EPC. So we're flexible generally as long as we have sort of the quality assurance done in a way that we're comfortable with.
Udus, we have just heard from Tarek that investors are becoming more educated about EPC procurement, also that they are more demanding now. They probably want to have a stake on the table also for questions not around pricing, but around contents. How do you see that from the other side?
Good question, because, it's really important to work together. When we receive the projects from developers, investors, so what we see from the process, it's better to be transparent about the work that we are doing. Because sometimes we're receiving the project in pitline in different scenarios that, nobody knows, how you will build it, and it really affects the schedule of the project. So what we do on that time is to sit together with our partners and try to find the solutions together to make sure, this project, work for a long term with a good optimization and all other things. So this is how we're moving forward. So for us is so many risks regarding to the soil and ground. However, with our team and also with the team of the investors, we can, build in a good way. So.
Can you maybe also, and you don't have to answer that because I just spontaneously came up with that, can maybe also share your experience with a project that you declined because you had the feeling that the client maybe was all over the place, or that the client was maybe not really knowing what they wanted?
Yes. So the thing is that, for example, we received the project from some of the investors that, it's in Finland and it's totally peatland. So they were asking us, you need to build it in 1 year or 1 year half. It's impossible. Even when you're checking the geotechnical reports, all the soil studies, they don't have any solutions. So what we're doing right now is we start with some early works. This is something that we are doing it right now often. So we together with developers, investors, we go do the works, do the plot tests, check the ground, and after that we make a solution. This is the solution, this is the time schedule, and we just trying to be transparent regarding to this issue. Yes, we declining sometimes. It's not something that our management likes it, but we decline it. It's risky.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense according to me. Dirk, when it comes to more specific questions, such as around the connection to the grid, but also the coupling with the batteries, how are you involved in decision making? And actually, how do you feel how educated investors are already about these specific topics?
I think batteries and energy storage in general, in combination with solar parks, are still something extraordinary. So it's not a common practice yet. Also, we see, and I think from a technical point of view, from a regulation point of view, everything points into the direction to couple the energy storage system with a PV park. I think in the second stage, you can even talk about coupling it with electrolyzers and producing hydrogen to have a long-term storage system working. So, but I think we now see the first steps towards it. So to make it technical possible, which it is, and in a couple of years, rather sooner than later, it will be a mandatory and common practice, I guess.
Thank you. I guess we've now gone through all the most burning topics around EPC and building projects. However, I want to close this specific section with a round of spotlights. So I would like to hear from all four of you, very briefly, whether you think that there are enough hands to build all these beautiful projects, and if you think it's not the case, what we actually could do to make it work nonetheless. Dirk, you have actually the opportunity to start.
with hands, you mean labor? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major problems that we will see with the acceleration done by the European Union. It is one of the clear bottlenecks that we do see, and obviously optimization of projects, of processes is key to it. I mean, like I think Salim, you mentioned the modularity of planning actually such projects. I think like that is key. I think like what you need to do is to prefabricate as much as possible. I mean, like we are doing this with the substations, for example, which you can plug and play essentially on the field. That is something, and you need to reduce timing for installation.
Sorry, I missed it. We were talking about the
Yes, I would like to hear from you whether you think there is enough labor actually to build all those projects, and if no, what we can actually do to face this shortage.
Yes, so no, there isn't any too much labor to build a project. So we have like lack of the manpower and also skilled manpower to build a project. So some of the projects, as I mentioned, they are so much complex. So regarding to tracker system, different scenarios, it's totally difficult to find laborers that they know what they are doing. So first you need to train them and make sure, okay, they have skills that they can build a project. So what we are doing is like as Intech, we are like have internal team that we have like minimum or maximum like some people to build the projects. However, it's not enough because we're getting so much projects. So we are working with some subcontractors that they are we are partnered with them to help us to build the project. So however, is really challenge.
The answer would be the same, that no, we see that there is really a shortage of manpower to accommodate for all the gigawatts we are planning to build. The big challenge here is, of course, scaling up as quick as necessary. So you mentioned the right example of investors coming to the EPC and expecting a project to be built within 1 year, and so that's not always easy, to not say impossible. And standardization of processes, of trainings, of guidelines, that's not always easy in an industry in which components are evolving so quickly. So when we talk about types of panels, of inverters, of stations, new products, new technologies, new normative considerations, earthings, and so on, it's not always easy to make a standard for which a new employed person can rely on and learn from. So that's one segment. The second thing is automation processes. So at Goldbeck Solar, in our innovation department, we are working on some solutions in order to improve the automation of assembly processes on site. And with that, we are hoping to push further to be able to save manpower, but also errors. And we hope the combination of the two to standardize more and to work on more automation processes that we can cope with the pipelines of the next years.
I think just to add on that, I mean, it's not just a problem with building solar projects, also a problem with the permitting. It's a problem, saying, with the grid. I mean, always hear from grid operator when I do loads of upgrades, but we don't have the resources either to actually plan it, but then actually to build it. So it's a wider issue than just construction. I think generally what we need to think about is how we optimize resourcing. We can add more resourcing, but at the end of the day, there will be limited resourcing available. So what do we do? I think scalability is important. So maybe we build larger projects with the right planning. I think more collaboration between asset owners and developers and EPC players, so we can pull resourcing together. And I think finally, innovation and technology. So ChatGPT, I don't think it's been covered today, but it's already making a huge difference in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So I expect that to, one, free up resourcing for us to use in the future, but also for us to be much more efficient in what we do and how we go around design, optimization, and construction.
Thank you, Tarek. We're now moving over to a more general topic, meaning the investment environment we're currently in. And for that, I actually need your help in the audience, because I would like to know from you what the average captured merchant price for a PV asset, an operational asset in Spain was in April. Was it A, 58 euros per megawatt hour, C, 29 euros per megawatt hour, B, 29 euros per megawatt hour, or C, 9 euros per megawatt hour? If you are thinking it was 58, so A, raise your hand now, please. I don't see any hands, that's interesting. If you think it was B, 29 euros per megawatt hour, raise your hand now. I see a couple of hands, a bit shy actually. Or if you think it was C, 9 euros per megawatt hour, raise your hand now. I think C has a slight majority, and congrats to you guys, it was right. So if you actually operated your average operational Spanish PV plant on the free market, in April you got around 9 euros per megawatt hour. Tarek, if you hear these values, what actually means that for your investments you have in mind?
Like €9 per megawatt hour, I think would be underwater. So there's no surprise, there's no investment case that we can build on such a low price. I think, yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's probably unfair to look at it on a monthly basis. Maybe we look at it on an annual basis and see how that would look like. But definitely there is an increase in negative pricing, so that's a big trend we're seeing. I think in Germany last year there was 300 hours. We're already seeing more than half of that this year, so it's definitely a trend that we're seeing. Yeah, there's no investment case that can be done at that price. Which having said that, I think this is where the focus will need to be: optimization and development, optimization and construction, optimization and operation, for us to sustain this kind of pricing.
I guess one typical suggestion for a solution is to go back to an era of high tariffs. Salim, you're coming from one of the last countries, meaning the Netherlands, where actually tariffs are still widely available in place. They have gone down also substantially, but we're not at 9 euros, but maybe at 60 or something like this. Do you think that it is a good way actually to still bet on subsidies, or do you think we've maybe now reached the end of the subsidy age?
I'm not the biggest expert for that, but my feeling is that, yeah, we are reaching the end of this subsidy age. So at least like now for Netherlands as one of the latest markets, yeah, that's what I would say.
I guess subsidies are, of course, always a very contentious point, and we've talked also about various ways of subsidies in the last couple of years. Dirk, I guess you're following the German discussion, and we had a lot of discussions also around capex subsidies for manufacturers of modules who are based in Europe and so on. As somebody who has been in the industry for substantial time, how do you think, or what's your take on how the discussion has evolved, also what the quality of discussion means? Is it the right thing we're talking about, or are we focusing on something that is maybe not so relevant?
No, I think it's actually very relevant, and indeed, I mean, like I was in the industry when we were like very heavily dependent on subsidies, and it wasn't a good thing in the end, you know, like because it led to a huge crash, and I see the industry now much more healthier than ever before, and indeed, coming back to it, it's about optimization, and what we do see now is that you actually stretch the business plan not to 20 years but to 30 years, so which then like leads to other investment decisions, and then when you look at longer periods of lifetime, I think you need to look as well into the OPEX, and when you look into the OPEX, it is like very relevant what kind of products you're using, which whom you are cooperating. So I think like a quality of a system is getting much more important than it used to be.
Okay, interesting. From what I'm hearing, I have the feeling that it becomes more and more complex, not complicated, but complex to invest in renewables. Tarek, are you already seeing that some of the smaller competitors are not in position to keep up with these challenges, or is this something that actually is talked about each and every year, but that never substantiates?
Look, I think the renewable industry is evolving. It's getting much more complex than just buying a project and building it and operating it. You need a lot of additional in-house capabilities. People need to understand the risk around trading. I think procurement, construction. I mean, we talked about long lead items. So while developing projects, you need to think about it. Do we need a transformer that's probably only available in 2-3 years down the line? How do I optimize the program around it? I think generally, investing in renewables is getting more complex, and you need to build a lot of capabilities around that. And it's no longer just get a piece of project and build it.
Uldus, have you maybe seen that the composition of your client has changed? So are you now working more with bigger companies in the past, or are you still having a rather diverse client base?
But actually, we have still our old clients that we are working with them. Also, we are receiving so many projects with different, from different people and clients that we never work with them. From our EPC perspective, it's increasing to receiving the projects and, in different regions. For example, before maybe we receive more the projects from some areas like Germany, Italy. However, now we are receiving the demands from the different, like Finland, Sweden, Estonia, that before you were not expecting to build in that region. So from EPC side, we're receiving different and too many projects. Mm-hmm. So it's still ongoing.
Good for you, I would say, yeah. I guess one important key player for the energy transition is not on stage, and this is actually the European citizens. I don't want to become too pretentious about that. I rather mean actually the local participation of citizens in renewable projects. And maybe turning back to Tarek, how important is it at the moment that actually local citizens also earn something from the projects in front of their doors? Is that something that has become more important or less important than in the past?
So I think this has always been an important element. We see that particularly developing wind sites, there's a lot of local participation. If the economics of the projects are tight, I think optimizing the way you go around OPEX is quite important. So instead of paying, I think we've seen obviously in a hot market, I think developers start paying a lot of the lease cost to landowners. That no longer can be, it's just not feasible enough. So I think thinking about innovative structure where we have landowners or local participants as part of the project owners, I think, and reducing that lease cost could help in mitigating or minimizing some of those risks around capture price and the less visibility of the project.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I guess we have some potential to give you some of the time back that we have actually built up over the course of the day. However, I would actually give our panelists the chance to have a short round of closing remarks. And again, I will ask you the same question and really look forward to what you're answering, because I would like to know whether you think that we are actually able to grasp all the opportunities that we laid out, or whether the risk will prevail, and whether you think that the targets we have set ourselves, especially in the EU, are feasible to reach, notwithstanding all the challenges we've described today. Dirk, you again have the nice lead in this discussion.
Yeah. I think that's it's like a real challenge. Like when you look at the European Union, I mean, like the targets are really ambitious, and I think like one of its kind of like on a global level as well. But timing is everything, and I think like we are here like for the next 3 days, most of us. I think it will be like the biggest Intersolar ever. The industry is like really keen and booming. So I think like we are in for the game, and what I do see is that regulations definitely is a topic. Grid permits are a topic. I think like the labor shortage at one point will resolve hopefully. So I think we can do it. Like one thing I liked about photovoltaic and the solar industry in general was always the pace that we are working at. So and that's like more than ever the case, I guess.
Yes, I totally agree with you because there are so many like still challenges, like as we discussed, like manpower, supply chain, grid capacity, and so many different topics. Okay, it's possible. However, it will be different challenges in this way. So.
Yeah, definitely we do have challenges, but I see it as a positive thing. Otherwise, something would be weird. So it's a good sign to have challenges in terms of manpower, of grid congestion. It means we have been doing things right and a bit too fast. So I think there is a lot of potential for improvement. We are learning to adapt to this scalability, and I personally have seen a lot of positive improvement in the PV industry from each sector, from development, financing, EPC, operation, maintenance, grid operators, and so on. So I'm very optimistic about the future. We probably won't be able to reach all the theoretical gigawatts we are planning to build, but at least we will reach a big part of it, and we'll learn how we can cover the rest.
Thank you. I think for me, big picture is solar is a pillar in energy transition. There are challenges for sure. It forces us to think, it forces us to go to those investments with our eyes wide open. We need to be sophisticated in our thinking. But the big picture is it is important that we invest in solar renewables. We're not doing that just for financial perspective, but we're doing that for big picture. So.
Well, I guess we're ending on a more positive note than you could have thought throughout the discussion. Before we leave the stage, we want to, of course, give you the chance to ask us anything you have on mind. So I guess in case there is something that you want to know from the panelists, just raise your hand and somebody will come to you. I see a gentleman in the back.
Thank you. So just a general question. I think everybody's skeptical about the investment. I see that. But looking at any industry, so solar industry will also mature. I think it's a tip of learning for everyone here. But as it goes on maturing, how do you see operations playing a critical role, especially for the asset owners to improve the capture rate? What is your expectations from that point would be helpful. Thank you.
That's maybe a question I could take so that I can also contribute something to the discussion. Because we at Encavis have been on quite a journey for a couple of years. We started out as a pure play financial investor. And for us, it was only important that the asset was running. Whether it was at 99% availability or 93% was not so important because tariffs were actually giving you a lot of security and also a lot of buffers to cope with some changes in the environment. This time is over. This is definitely over, which is also why we have decided to take all the operational stuff in-house. We now do that with our own colleagues, and we think that this is one of the key factors to earn the extra margin you need actually to grapple with times in the market where you earn the now famous €9 per megawatt hours. As well, we have also started to work on the electricity marketing side of things quite early in the process, because the one thing is that there is a low price market environment. The other thing is that you don't necessarily have to market only to the average customer. You can, of course, create value by structuring your electricity in a way that is more attractive to the customer. You can also think hard about which customers to cater to. Bankability is always a big issue, but also non-bankable off-takers can provide security for you as an operator. So to put it in a nutshell, yes, it's absolutely key key for asset owners, I guess, to become active and to become involved. It's not a sufficient strategy just to wait and see and hope that for 30 years your asset will actually operate as you initially planned in your financial model.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Hello, I'm impressive about just now Ms. Flora talked about the challenge with the developer when you talk about the projects. I'm from the tier one, Bloomberg tier one manufacturer of modules. So my question is that do you think you have any risks of talking about the cooperation with the Bloomberg tier one equipment supplier currently? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So you mean the challenges with the manufacturer, tier one model manufacturers, right? It's mostly a question for our supply chain. However, right now I think we have, discussions with the manufacturers. However, the challenges maybe can be the timing, because sometimes we receive the project that, okay, we have limited time to make sure, okay, the specification that developers, investors asking us, okay, we follow them. So maybe it slowed down the process. So that's the reason we always prefer to work with the manufacturers that we always work. However, in the meantime, if we have a good timing of the, providing the project, so definitely we are discussing with different tier one manufacturers. So I don't see the challenges, but it should be always in the right time. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, I guess the only thing that's left for me to say is to thank you actually for participating, also for asking us some questions. And I'm not too sure whether we have a coffee break, but I guess we all enjoy or would enjoy a coffee. So thank you.